And sometimes I think this is a hidden workforce, so that's why I started this pilot program called 21st Century Inclusion. There's individuals with disabilities that are entering the workforce but aren't able to find jobs, and they aren't able to get into these programs because there's a lot of barriers, stereotypes. So I want to take you through how I created this program that I started with one of my Kiddie Academy locations, and we're now working on with a corporate office for a national program to be outlawed. So I want to take you through kind of what happened and how I got into this, just decided to do this program. 8 years ago, I finished teaching in the public schools, decided to transition to the private sector with early childhood education, taught preschool for about a year, and then transitioned into a director of one of our Centerville location. And a mother and her daughter walked into my office. The mom was in tears. Her daughter was just fired, quote unquote, from a volunteer position she was doing. Her daughter was on the autistic spectrum, and they fired her because she couldn't trust her in the program she was working with children, and the daughter was a wreck, the mom was a wreck. So I'm listening to this story, and I'm like, well, there's got to be a way I can help them. Like, even though I'm in the child care sector, these people, they're coming to me for asking for help. So I sat down with her, and we talked about how her daughter wanted to become a teacher, and it's a goal that everyone has smashed for her entire life. And I said, well, let's not smash it, let's raise it up. And I said, I'll give her an employment opportunity. We'll start her off as a floating assistant. She'll help out in classrooms, just being there with the students, playing with them, organizing crafts and games. She said, you don't have to pay her, she volunteers, she doesn't need it. I said, absolutely not. She's going to be an assistant teacher, making what a starting assistant teacher would make, and we'll work her up through the program. Well, 8 years later, I'm happy to say she just finished her child associate's degree and is becoming a lead teacher at not my center. She wanted to go to another center where her mom moved to, and we're so proud of her. So I want to take you through how we did that program and how I can make that work, because this is a talent that you really could be able to get. ADA defines a person with disability as anyone who has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. So it's a wide, broad definition. So we're not just talking about autistic spectrum disorders. We're talking about everything from a little physical impairment all the way up to mental retardation and things like that, that still are a pipeline of talent that you can tap into for any of your programs. I know when I first started this program, my oversight committees and my licensing agencies were very timid about seeing someone with autistic spectrum disorder or Down syndrome in my classrooms, because, oh my God, that's not safe. They're watching children, you can't trust them, they're a child themselves. They said, no, they're trustworthy, we train them, we teach them, give them the resources. So this is a talent that you can definitely use. By the year 2035, we're going to be investing, just in the federal government alone, an additional $18 billion a year to educate these people in the public schools. We have some members from Prince William County here, and that's a huge amount of money where we're training these students through adult education programs, transitional services to get them out into the workforce. And I want to break the barrier of, well, they're just going to go work at McDonald's. Well, what if they don't want to work at McDonald's? What if they want to work at your company? How can you work with these schools to really make sure that we are tapping into this talent, training them, connecting them with a training service, and hiring them in your company, because they are just as capable and talented as everyone else. Nationally right now, only around 40% of working age adults with disabilities currently hold a job, compared to the 79% of adults without a defined disability. It's a huge difference. And that's a huge demand that we can really tap into as a company. We've just heard about getting into the workforce and making sure we're hiring people that will stay, will have retention, will make sure that we can have that. Some of these states actually percentages that are under 20%, which is a really sad reality, because these people have the same talent ability if we train them well and we do these correct programs, as Jamie was saying. If we can really start them out with educating the community, educating employers, and educating our talent, we can really tap into this workforce. And unemployment percentages that sometimes really hit us as a business, we can say, I've got a constant stream that I'm working with to get into. And it's a really important aspect. So how do we get employers to see into this untapped workforce population? Well, there's a couple barriers that hit before we can do that. So disability perception. I know, as you saw when I'm hobbling up here, I fought cancer for 4 years, and unfortunately then was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So I know sometimes people come into my schools and they see me and they're like, well, he's in a wheelchair or he's hobbling around in these, how can he work with children? Well, I can do it just the same as everybody else. I have my wheelchairs, I've got these to help me, and I have resources that our employment that I work for, we make sure that happens. So we have to change the perception of, ooh, it's a disability, do I really want that in there? Are they gonna be able to do the job as well? I'm gonna have to pay a second person to supervise this person, you know? Break that perception, break that barrier, get rid of these stereotypes that are out there about individuals with disabilities. Disability doesn't have to be a negative term. It's a term that we can take and educate the community on how we can tap into these people with individuals that have disabilities and how we can make them part of our employment community. Previous experience or contact with an employer with people with disabilities. So sometimes we come from a place, I know I worked 1,000 jobs putting myself through college, and you may have worked with someone with a disability that maybe wasn't trained properly, and you're like, oh my God, I had to go around and show her every single day how to turn the ice cream machine on or how to do the soda machine. Well, that's not her fault. That means it was a failure on the employer to properly train her or him in those positions that they were hired for. And that's part of the problem 8 years ago when that student came into my office, is they probably weren't trained in what her responsibility was in the classroom. If she had been properly trained of, this is your role, and here's how we're gonna do it, and here's how we're gonna follow up, I don't think they would have had a problem where they needed to ask her to stop volunteering. That is the problem, I think, is we have to break these boundaries of, oh, I've had a bad experience when I hired someone with this disability. No, we have to fix that. Teach these individuals how to be part of the workforce. Worker traits of people with disabilities, a lot of times I'll talk to people when I'm trying to implement these programs, oh, well, they're just not as capable as a regular teacher. Well, that's, first of all, that's not true, and secondly, you're doing a stereotype. You're now putting down a group of people that are just as capable as everybody in this room here. It's just a matter of how we train them, how we make them part of our community, and how we can, as employers, say, we welcome you, and here's how we're gonna engage you in our community here. Accommodation and cost issues of employing people with disabilities. Oh, well, I'm gonna have to have just a special training program just for this individual because she has no idea what she's doing or he has no idea what he's doing. No, not true. You already have training programs in place in your company. When you hire a new hire, you have a series of steps you take to make sure you orient them to your company policies, what their job description is gonna be. They go through an orientation process and they're probably on probation for a certain amount of time. You just have to tweak that a little bit and define exactly what you're doing. It's possible and it's easy to do. And then again, personality traits and social skills of people with disabilities. Sometimes your experiences, whether from your schooling days to your employment days, put a barrier in your mind of, oh, I don't want to hire someone like that. That's just going to create a problem. People are going to talk and say that we don't have good workers. Not true. These are good workers. These are people that work harder 9 times out of 10 than your non-disability individuals. And then a lack of disability awareness and education. I think we're on the right track as a country that we're starting to become more accepting. But if you look back, it wasn't until 1991 that ADA was passed, where we, as employers and people, had to, okay, we can't discriminate against you anymore. And the public schools started to get massive funding now from states and federal government to educate these people instead of just locking them in a room and getting them out of the school systems as fast as possible. Prince William County, Fairfax County, we spend billions of dollars to educate them. We put them in transitional programs when they turn 18 till they're 21 and get them ready to go out to the workforce. Well, then what? Where do they go from there? So this is how I do the talent program. I'm going to try to go through as fast as I can without taking up too much time. So people with disabilities are reliable employees and have overall higher job retention rate. I work at Early Childhood Center. You probably, those that work at it, know the turnover rate is a plague, and it's horrible. But I can tell you, every individual that I work with that has a disability stays with me until they move out of the area or go to college. And they are the people I can retain, and they're the ones I can trust in. I just honored one with perfect attendance for 2 years in a row. She's never taken a sick day. I mean, it's amazing. And I have people who have called out 15 times in the last 3 months. So it's a stark difference in your talent. Employees with disabilities are less likely to get into work-related accidents. They are more focused. They are more aware of your requirements in your employment business. From childcare to any job that you guys are offering, you train them, they're more likely to follow those trainings that you give them to the letter. So if they're properly trained, they're gonna follow that position exactly. When I sit down at an orientation meeting with someone with a disability versus someone without a disability, I can tell you the individuals with disabilities are staring at me, they're taking notes, they're looking through the PowerPoints and the handouts I'm giving them, they're asking questions that I don't even think of. I hire someone without a disability. Yeah, I know, I've done this for 20 years. I'm a pro at it. Well, you may be a pro at it, but you don't know my job description. So let's sit down and talk about it. But you get this complete opposite when I'm working with individuals with disabilities. Businesses that hire people with disabilities, you can receive tax credits. There's other incentive programs, both nationally and state, that you can get. So definitely make sure, if you want to talk more about that afterwards, we can talk about some of the financial benefits of it. You can definitely get some tax incentives for it as well. Workers with disabilities increase diversity in your workplace. I can't tell you how many parents come up to me and say their child was out walking the street and they run into an individual with disability and the child doesn't stop and stare. They treat them like everybody else. So we're creating this image as a community of, I see someone with crutches, I see someone in a wheelchair, I see someone who may not talk the same as I do, or maybe they can't interact the same, but their children don't see that anymore. I removed this. There's no more anybody, the stigma of, oh my God, wow, what is she walking like that? Their children just walk up and embrace that now. And that's a huge thing that we're imparting on our children from a young age. When they get out into the community, stereotypes won't exist anymore if we're employing people with disabilities and creating a culture of awareness. People with disabilities, I've said it 1,000 times, they're as capable as anyone else. I have a nephew who's got Down syndrome. He's as capable as everyone else in this room. It's a matter of training him into being able to be part of our work phase. So let me take you through the Kiddie Academy process and how we're exactly doing it. 8 years ago, I started a pilot program. I worked with Fairfax County Public Schools, our local schools. We talked with the high school transitional programs, and they were huge. I mean, they were so excited when I called and said, I want to start working on recruiting your students who are about to transition into the workforce program and giving them one of their first jobs. The school was excited. We came up with a program, and I came up with ways, how am I going to train this workforce to be a long-term asset in my company and not just something I can put a picture on my wall and say, yeah, I hire people with disabilities, but they're hiding in the kitchen and they're not visible. No, I wanted them in the classroom. I wanted the parents to walk in and go, wow, you actually hire people like this. This is amazing. So I started employee mentor programs. I designate a current veteran employee who works with this person with disability, because this means that after I do the onboarding and training, I now have a veteran who I trust to consistently stay with them and get them to a point where they're comfortable and confident in their role in my school. And like I said, they don't walk out the door 3 months later. They love what they're doing. They're excited, and they are the first ones that are bucking for that promotion. When there's a full-time assistant teaching position, they want that classroom assignment. When there is a community program that I'm opening and I want someone to head up that committee, they want that project. So having a veteran teacher in my school who can mentor them and train them is crucial. I don't have the time every day to sit down with every one of my employees and be that mentor, so I can designate someone in the organization who sees the vision of this pilot program that we started, and they can do it in the classroom. Training and staff education. When I first brought on this program, I had to train my current staff into understanding this program was not just me saying, guys, we're going to help out the community, we're just going to hire a few of them, but you don't really see them as employees, okay? Just give them paperwork to do. No, I wanted the staff to say, you guys are part of our school, you're part of my classroom, you're as capable as any other assistant teacher or teacher that walks into this classroom. So I had to train and break these barriers and stereotypes that my current staff had, and it wasn't easy. I will tell you, some of the staff threw up a fit. Oh, I don't trust them, in the classroom. What if I'm changing a diaper and they're watching the kids by themselves? They will know their job description. They will know what to do. I will have spent the money to train them, just as I spent when I hired you to train you. They will be able to do that job because they will have the necessary tools and skills that they need. So then I partnered with the community. I told you I partnered with Fairfax County, and just this year I started with Patriot High School, working with their transitional service program, which has been great. We had 2 hires this year from that, and one of them is finishing her transitional service and is looking to start with us full-time this summer, which is really exciting because she wants to be a teacher, full-blown teacher, and everyone's told her whole life, you'll never be a teacher. And I'm helping her connect with local schools and programs that are going to get first her CDA, then her associates, and work her up towards a bachelor's. So we're really excited for her. So find partnerships within your community. I know we have a ton in this area. There's national and state level programs. Partner with a community resource member who can help you connect with these talent groups. The schools, like I said, have the transitional programs. You want to find that workforce, work with the schools. Okay, we want someone in the educational field to work with childcare. They will look for those people enrolled in the transitional services who are looking, well, I want to be some kind of child caregiver. I want to be a teacher. I want to do something with kids. They have a passion. I can tell you I have a one-on-one student in my school that needs one-on-one aid. And I hired a young lady with a disability on the autistic spectrum, and she's the best one-on-one aide I've ever had for this student who has autistic spectrum disorder, because she connects with him. She understands what his needs are, and when his behavior is getting a problem, she's someone that can take him to a corner and do something to keep him from having a meltdown. Way more valuable to me than any other special education trained teacher I've ever had, because she can directly connect with what he's going through. So partner with the schools, partner with local businesses that work on this talent pipeline, because it's an untapped thing that you guys really could enhance your businesses with. We also are setting a community tone of acceptance. So like I said, we're just this year rolling out with my corporate office for Kiddie Academy. We're starting this in multiple locations across the country. We have over 200 centers in this nation. And we're starting with 25 schools across the nation. And it sets a community tone of acceptance that we are a child care facility that embraces student and adult individual disabilities, and we want that diversity to be known. We want cultural acceptance. We've got a lot of negativity in this world. Let's not be part of it. Let's be the ones that are positively changing how we hire. We don't just want to hire the fresh graduates with those fancy degrees. Let's hire the people with disabilities that we can train to be just as talented as those fancy degrees trained teachers that you're getting. And these are some references I'm happy to print out for you of some tax things you can get, companies that help you get you the talent pipeline there. So it's crucial that we as a community start making this change of, I'm not hiring the traditional college graduate, I'm going to hire as well individuals with disabilities. How am I going to connect these disability individuals in my company, grow them? Remember, not just a pedestal, oh look, I've got an individual with disability. No, I've got an individual with disability who maybe one day will be my next assistant director or my next educational program leadership committee team. That's the key, and that's what this program that I started, the 21st Century Inclusion Program, I call it, because we're including them in our public schools now. Let's include them in our workforce as well.